What if I told you that the fate of an entire NFL franchise now rests in the hands of one player? Not a quarterback, not an owner, not even a general manager. We're talking about a defensive end who just made history by breaking one of the most sacred records in football, and he's about to make a decision that could either save the Cleveland Browns or send them spiraling into another decade of misery. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now, and the pressure is suffocating everyone involved. Because Myles Garrett doesn't just want a seat at the table, he wants answers. And if he doesn't get them, the consequences could be catastrophic. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now. This story is just getting started, and you won't believe where it goes. Let's rewind to January 5th, 2026. The Cleveland Browns had just wrapped up their season with a meaningless 2018 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Meaningless in the standings, that is, because the Browns finished 5-12, their second consecutive losing season, an eighth win in 34 games over 2 years. But this game meant everything to one man, Myles Garrett. On that cold Sunday afternoon in Cincinnati, Garrett recorded his 23rd sack of the season on Joe Burrow, officially breaking the NFL single-season sack record previously held by Michael Strahan and T.J. Watt. The crowd barely reacted. The Browns were eliminated from playoff contention weeks ago. But Garrett had just cemented himself as one of the greatest pass rushers in NFL history. And yet, as he walked off that field, the weight on his shoulders had never been heavier. Because less than 24 hours later, Kevin Stefanski was fired. The two-time NFL Coach of the Year, the man who had led the Browns to their first playoff win in 26 years back in 2021, was out. General Manager Andrew Berry announced the decision on Monday, January 6th, and suddenly the Cleveland Browns were thrust into yet another coaching search, the franchise's 11th head coach since returning to the NFL in 1999. And at the center of all of it stood Myles Garrett, the face of the franchise, watching, waiting, and making it abundantly clear that this time he wouldn't just sit back and accept whatever happened next. Here's what makes this situation absolutely explosive. Myles Garrett isn't just a star player hoping things work out. He's a man who has publicly demanded a trade once before, signed a $160 million contract extension believing the Browns had a plan to win, and then watched that plan completely collapse. He's 30 years old now, in the prime of his career, and he just broke the sack record on a team that won 5 games. Think about that for a second. The best defensive season in modern NFL history, wasted on a team that was never competitive. And now, as the Browns search for their next head coach, Garrett is sending very clear signals that he will not go through another rebuild. He will not waste another year, and he will absolutely walk away if this organization doesn't prove to him that they're serious about winning. Let's go back to where this all started. In February 2025, just days after the Browns finished a disastrous 3-17 season, Myles Garrett shocked the football world by publicly requesting a trade. He released a statement on social media that read like a breakup letter. He said his love for Cleveland and the fan base made the decision incredibly difficult, but his desire to win wouldn't allow him to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton, he said. It was always to compete for and win a Super Bowl. And with that, he formally requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. The request sent shockwaves through the NFL. This wasn't some disgruntled role player demanding out. This was the best defensive player in football, the #1 overall pick from 2017, the franchise cornerstone saying he'd had enough, and the Browns predictably panicked. General Manager Andrew Berry immediately went on record saying he had zero interest in trading Garrett, even for multiple first-round picks. Owner Jimmy Haslam backed him up. They insisted Garrett would retire as a Brown and go straight to the Hall of Fame in Canton. They refused to entertain offers. Behind the scenes, negotiations began. And on March 9, 2025, just over a month after the trade request, Garrett agreed to a 4-year contract extension worth $160 million, with $123.5 million guaranteed. At the time, it was the richest contract ever given to a non-quarterback in NFL history. The deal included a no-trade clause, meaning Garrett would have full control over his future. If he ever wanted out again, the Browns would have no choice but to comply. So what changed? According to Garrett, it came down to conversations with Andrew Berry. Berry sold him on a vision. He convinced Garrett that the Browns had a plan to fix the offense, stabilize the quarterback position, and compete for championships. Garrett believed him. He trusted that the organization was committed to winning, and he signed the deal. But the 2025 season proved that vision was a lie. The offense got worse, not better. The quarterback situation devolved into chaos. Deshaun Watson re-tore his Achilles before the season started. Joe Flacco, who Garrett personally advocated for the team to bring back after his heroics in 2023, started 1-3 and was benched. Rookie quarterbacks Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders took turns under center, and neither could get the offense moving. The Browns ranked 30th in total offense, 32nd in scoring, and dead last in red zone efficiency. It was a complete disaster. Meanwhile, Garrett was putting together the greatest individual defensive season in NFL history. He recorded 23 sacks, 59 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and completely dominated opposing offenses week after week. He had 5 sacks in a single game against the Patriots, multiple 2-sack performances. He was unstoppable. And yet, the Browns couldn't win. They went 5-12. They were never competitive, and Garrett, once again, was left wondering what the hell he signed up for. Now, let's fast forward to January 2nd, 2026, just days before Stefanski was fired. Garrett held a press conference ahead of the Bengals game, and reporters asked him about the future. His answers were chilling. When asked if he wanted to see continuity with the coaching staff, Garrett paused. He didn't endorse Stefanski. He didn't say he wanted him to stay. Instead, he said, "I want things to be successful, however that looks. I don't know what the future holds, whether it's with him or anything else. I'm going to be happy to be here, being a Brown, regardless." It was the most diplomatic non-answer you'll ever hear, but everyone in that room understood what he was really saying. He was done making excuses. He wanted results. Then came the bombshell. A reporter asked Garrett if he'd be willing to go through a rebuild. His response was ice cold. "I'm committed to winning, as long as the team and the organization are doing so, and they're committed to that same thing, then I'm all on board. But if we're thinking anything other than winning, tanking, or rebuilding, that's not me." He didn't yell, he didn't get emotional, he just stated it as fact. If the Browns choose to rebuild, Myles Garrett will not be a part of it. Period. Let that sink in. The Browns are about to hire a new head coach, and their best player, the guy with a no-trade clause and the leverage to force his way out, just put the entire front office on notice. This isn't about loyalty anymore. This is about winning. And if Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam can't prove to Garrett that they have a real plan, he will demand a trade, and this time there's no stopping it.
Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Garrett isn't just passively watching from the sidelines, he's actively influencing this coaching search. Multiple reports have indicated that the Browns are prioritizing candidates who can keep defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz on staff, because Garrett publicly endorsed Schwartz as a potential head coach. When asked about Schwartz before Stefanski was fired, Garrett said, "I know he's regimented and very efficient. That's how he runs it on defense, so those two things would hold true." It wasn't a ringing endorsement for a head coaching job, but it was clear respect. Garrett loves playing for Schwartz. The entire defense does. Browns safety Grant Delpit went even further, saying, "I think Coach Schwartz is going to be a great still-got-it type of head coach. He's a fiery guy, and I'd vouch for him." Cornerback Denzel Ward echoed the sentiment, saying Schwartz has elevated his game and deserves serious consideration. These aren't just platitudes. These are players making it clear who they want to lead this team. But here's the dilemma. Jim Schwartz is a defensive coordinator. The Browns' biggest problem is the offense. ESPN's Adam Schefter laid it out perfectly on national television. He said the Browns cannot hire a defensive-minded head coach if they want to keep Schwartz. Why? Because if they hire someone like Brian Flores, Jesse Minter, or Steve Spagnuolo, all defensive coordinators currently interviewing for head coaching jobs, Schwartz will leave. He won't stick around to play second fiddle to another defensive mind. And if Schwartz leaves, the defense, Cleveland's only strength, falls apart. So what's the solution? Schefter's advice was clear. Hire an offensive-minded head coach. Let that coach fix the broken offense and develop Shedeur Sanders or whoever the next quarterback is going to be. Keep Schwartz running the defense. Don't mess with what's working. Focus on building an offense that can actually score points. It makes sense in theory, but the execution is where things get complicated. The Browns have started conducting interviews. They're talking to Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who was Cleveland's OC back in 2019. They're interviewing Bengals offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher. They've requested to speak with Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who has built a reputation for developing quarterbacks. Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady is another name in the mix. All offensive-minded guys, all focused on fixing the side of the ball that has plagued this franchise for years. But then there's the wild card, Jim Schwartz himself. General Manager Andrew Berry confirmed that Schwartz will interview for the head coaching job. He has head coaching experience. He was the head coach of the Detroit Lions from 2009 to 2013, where he went 29-51 but took over a winless team and led them to the playoffs in 2011. Since then, he's established himself as one of the best defensive coordinators in football. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles in 2018. He's turned the Browns into a top-5 defense for 2 straight years. Players love him, and now he's a candidate to run the entire operation. Here's the question. Does Myles Garrett want Schwartz to be the head coach? Reports suggest Garrett would be happy with Schwartz, but he hasn't come out and explicitly endorsed him for the job. Instead, Garrett has made it clear that he wants the Browns to hire someone who is committed to winning immediately. That could be Schwartz. It could be an offensive guru like Monken or Kubiak. It could even be the dream hire, former Ravens head coach John Harbaugh, who was shockingly fired this week and now is the most sought-after candidate on the market.
Harbaugh is the ultimate prize. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's coached in Baltimore for 18 years and made the playoffs 12 times. He's a proven winner. And according to Cleveland.com's Mary Kay Cabot, the Browns are absolutely on Harbaugh's radar. She reported that Harbaugh has legitimate interest in coaching the Browns, despite the uncertain quarterback situation and the looming rebuild of the offense. Why? Because Harbaugh grew up as a Browns fan. He has Ohio ties, and some reports suggest the Browns could offer him a contract worth over $100 million to bring him to Cleveland for the long haul. If the Browns land Harbaugh, it would be the biggest coaching hire in franchise history. It would signal to Myles Garrett and the rest of the NFL that Cleveland is serious about winning. But here's the catch. Harbaugh is also being courted by multiple other teams. The Las Vegas Raiders are in the mix. The Miami Dolphins just fired Mike McDaniel and could make a run at him. The competition is fierce. And if the Browns miss out on Harbaugh, they'll have to convince Garrett that whoever they do hire is the right guy. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. What happens if the Browns make the wrong hire? What if they bring in a coach Garrett doesn't believe in? What if they choose to go with a rebuild instead of reloading? The answer is simple. Garrett demands a trade, and this time it's not a negotiating tactic, it's a reality. Garrett has a no-trade clause. He controls his destiny. If he wants out, the Browns have to trade him, and multiple teams would line up to make offers. The Philadelphia Eagles have been linked to Garrett in the past. The Green Bay Packers reportedly made inquiries. The Chicago Bears made what ESPN described as an aggressive offer for him before the 2025 trade deadline.
If Garrett hits the market, he'll have his pick of contenders. He could go to Kansas City and chase a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. He could join the 49ers and pair with Nick Bosa to create the most dominant pass rush in football. The possibilities are endless. And losing Myles Garrett would be devastating for the Browns. He's the best player they've had in a generation. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's the face of the franchise. Trading him would signal to the rest of the league and to Browns fans that this team has no idea what it's doing. It would be an admission of failure, and it would send them right back into the endless cycle of rebuilding that has defined this franchise for decades. So here's where we are. The Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads. They have to hire the right head coach. They have to convince Myles Garrett that they're serious about winning. They have to fix the offense without destroying the defense, and they have to do all of this while competing with other teams for the best coaching candidates on the market. The pressure is immense. The stakes couldn't be higher, and Myles Garrett is watching every move. When reporters asked Garrett if he would offer his opinion on the coaching hire to ownership, he gave a telling answer. "I play football," he said. "If they ask me my opinion on whatever they ask me about, I'll give it. But I play football, and that's where I like to keep my focus." Translation, I'm not going to publicly campaign for or against anyone, but if you ask me what I think, I'll tell you. And if you don't listen, I'm gone. This is the reality facing the Browns. Myles Garrett may not officially have a vote in who becomes the next head coach, but make no mistake, his influence is everywhere. The Browns know they can't afford to lose him. They know that any candidate they bring in will have to earn Garrett's respect and trust. They know that if they screw this up, the franchise's best player walks, and the rebuild starts all over again. The power dynamic has shifted. Garrett isn't just a player anymore. He's a decision maker, and the Browns have no choice but to listen. So can Myles Garrett play a key role in the team's future? Absolutely. In fact, he already is. Every interview the Browns conduct, every candidate they evaluate, every decision they make, it all has to pass the Myles Garrett test. Will he buy in? Will he believe in this coach? Will he stay? These are the questions that will determine the next 5 to 10 years of Cleveland Browns football. And if the answer to any of those questions is no, the Browns are in serious trouble. The clock is ticking, the interviews are underway, and somewhere in Cleveland, Myles Garrett is waiting to see if the organization he bet his career on is actually serious about winning. Because if they're not, he won't stick around to watch them fail again. This coaching hire isn't just about finding the right leader. It's about proving to the best player in franchise history that the Cleveland Browns are finally ready to compete. And if they can't do that, they'll lose him. And once he's gone, there's no coming back.
This story is based on reports, public statements, player comments, and ongoing developments surrounding the Cleveland Browns coaching search and Myles Garrett's role in shaping the team's future. Information has been compiled from credible sports journalism sources, including ESPN, Cleveland.com, NFL Network, and team announcements. As the coaching search continues, new details may emerge. All analysis and commentary reflect available information as of January 2026.